why did you guys decide to apply to the US?
I think the short answer will be I'm done with UK education, just like Melwin. The most interesting things throughout the whole application journey will be probably reading like my friends' essays, get to know them, like
Oh,
from another side. Yeah. But I guess Shuzin will have more interesting story to share for her Stanford interview.
Okay,
For like my Stanford application, I really communicated like two things clearly. Like I was really interested in STEM, like healthcare, and also solving the spread of infectious diseases around like the world, and also education inequalities.
When people ask you why US, you need to be able to answer the question. I guess that's the only way the admission officer can tell because like what we all know, like the admission rate is incredibly low.
you had the experience to turn your experiences. What am I saying? Okay. Like,
hi, I'm Henry.
hi everyone, I'm Shusin, and today we'll talk about the A to Z about applying to US universities. And let me introduce our two guest speakers for today, Melwin and Khai Xin.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Melwin. I am an incoming freshman at Stanford University, and I just finished my A-level studies, I guess a few months ago. And I mean, like these few months, I've been like traveling around and like chilling and still trying to get my driver's license. So yeah, that's a short intro about myself.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Khai Xin. I'm also an incoming freshman at Cornell University, same as Henry. I'm their friends and yeah, I just done my A level and will fly to US next week.
Yeah, and Khai Xin also got her driver's license recently.
Yes.
Okay. So I think maybe the first question that we can discuss about is like, why did you guys decide to apply to the US? Like, yeah, maybe we can share
Yeah,
first.
yeah, sure. I think for me, like back then when I was like looking at like university options, right? I I think that I'm the kind of person to like explore different things, even though like personally I like studying biology and like life science related courses, but I've always felt like like topics such as like history and also like political science really interest me. And I felt that when I was in like KY, like I mean all of us were supposed to apply to like both UK and also like US, right? I felt that the UK education system was sort of like rigid and limited in a way. Like it didn't offer me like any like flexibility. Like for example, if you want to do like biology, then you have to do like biology for like 4 years. You can't do like, oh, like bio and like theatrical studies, or like bio and like computer science. Yeah, so for me, I really think that a holistic education is like the way to go for me personally, and I really want to study in the US because of that. Yeah.
Okay, what about Khai Xin?
Right. I think the short answer will be I'm done with UK education, just like Melwin. Yeah, but the longer version will be just like what Melvin said. I've always like loved different fields other than like my intended major. So only US education will allow me to take a major and minor at the same time. So that's why I chose US.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So for any students out there, if you feel like you are not used to the usual Malaysian and UK education system where you are just supposed to study like your major, your degree course only, then yeah, you can try exploring like the US system as well because it might suit you. So Melvin and Kaisin, can you all share more about what majors or minors you are planning to take and what inspired you to do the course?
All right. So yeah, maybe I can like share first. All right. So I think all along I've wanted to do like bioscience or like like life science related courses, because I think when I was like 13 or 14 years old, one of my family members, they actually like kena dengue, and it was like quite an eye-opening experience for me, because I realized like how severe mosquito-borne illnesses was to like Malaysian society and also like anyone in like the equatorial region. So like that was really one of the turning points that actually motivated me to like start looking into how to address these issues. And I sort of like jumped into like research, and from there it really made me feel that like I wanted to like be involved in like bioscience and maybe come up with something useful for humanity in the future. But I think recently, like after I've started like considering like some of my like course options, right, I'm starting to wonder if like having like a double degree in like like biology and computer science would be like more practical. Because this is like a true experience I want to share. Like I think last week, I went to like a program under like my sponsorship body, YK. There was like a guy from Kazana National Park. I think, yeah, he joined us together to like talk about our like future pathways in career after lunch. I mean during lunchtime, and like he asked me like like what course are you interested in doing, and I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna do bio, and he was like, oh, macam susah sikit lah. He was like, it's gonna be a bit hard for you to like come back to Malaysia and like find a job opportunity lah. And then I told him that actually I've been considering taking up like computer science as a like either as a minor or as a double degree in like university, because I feel like for computer science it actually gives you a lot of like freedom to um jump into any field of career in the future, because I think it's like an essential skill that any company or any employer would want. So I think that's the reason why I think maybe I'm gonna do computer science in college too. Yeah.
And Casey?
Right. So for your context, I plan to major in information science, or you may call it data science. So just like what Melvin said, since young I've always like the STEM girl. Like I like math and then like the science, especially biology, same as Melvin. But then yeah, when I told my parents like I want to do biology, then they said, it's very difficult to get a job and stuff like that, because pure biology you need to either pursue like research, or like PhD in order for you to secure a job. So then I asked myself, can I do bio alone or can I do math alone? So the answer is no. I need to study both at the same time. So when I'm bored with bio, I turn to math and vice versa. So then I came across bioinformatics. It's a very cool subject where they use statistics to apply it in bio, because when you do research you need data. So when you need data you need to analyze, and that's where statistics come in handy. And nowadays you need data science, you need computer machine, like the computing power to do the statistics, because there's no way for you to use the traditional method. Yeah, so then I came across data science, and I think that's the perfect combo for me, a blend of both, like do mathematics and apply the statistics part in different fields. Just like one day, what if I'm interested in fashion? I can still use my statistics skill, my data science skill to apply it in that sector. And if I really, really like bio, just like how when I was young day, so then I can still apply that knowledge into the bio field. So that's the main reason why I choose data science. It gives me the flexibility to change later and decide what to do next.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Marin and Kaisi. Really great to hear like you all have a clear idea of what you want to do since you were like maybe in secondary school days, right? And yeah, I'm sure like it'll work great because you all are pursuing interdisciplinary fields, which is what the US can offer. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I can add on a little bit about the experience that I got from the same sponsorship activity that like we joined before that. So during the same session as well, like the sharing session by our sponsors, and then there's a few of my friends that during that event, like they are all doing like pure bio or like pure life sciences subjects. So they actually asked for like people's advice whether is there any prospect in the future in Malaysia. So they actually recommended them to like maybe integrate with something else, like especially tech, especially like statistics and then like computer science, this kind of like stuff, which is more versatile and then like more flexible. So if you guys are really like this kind of like interdisciplinary things and then like to mix different stuff together and like to explore more field, I believe that US education is the right way for you. Yeah. So since you guys already like share a lot of like passions towards that subject, do you mind like sharing what kind of projects or what kind of experiences that you have actually undertake throughout your whole application process or like during your early school years? Yeah. So maybe Melvin can share first.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really highlighted a lot lah, like I really emphasized a lot in my application was my research project that I did in high school because I felt that it actually was one of like the big turning points in my life. I was like really passionate to like solve that issue. I wouldn't say like that was one of the biggest reasons why I got into like the US, but I would say that it's part of like my story and also like my identity that it actually like brought me to where I am today. So yeah, and I think like maybe I can just like share a little bit about like what I did in the project. So like as I mentioned like previously, like I said my family member like got dengue, right? So I think from there I actually started like looking into the problem of like how mosquitoes spread diseases among us, and from there I started looking into what are the current solutions. And I think from what I found there, like um humans we like to use a lot of like synthetic chemicals to like kill all these like pests and all that, and it's actually causing a bigger harm on the environment, and it's also really expensive. So at that time I started looking at any like natural ways to like solve this problem, and I did like a laboratory experiment to like extract a chemical from natural plant sources to like kill the mosquito larvae. So yeah, that's what I'm super passionate about. But in like university, I think I'm gonna definitely look more into like this field like epidemiology, but also at the same time I'm gonna look at the more general fields of biology and also definitely computer science. Yeah.
So thanks Melvin, and then Khai, do you want to share any projects and things?
Yeah, sure. So I only know I'm gonna do data science after SPM. So because we are the last year to have KBSM syllabus, so we
Yeah.
don't really learn coding when we are in secondary school or primary school. So I actually took some time to pick up some of the basic coding skill. So and I don't really have a lot of time to do data science projects. So what I include in my application was actually my very first data science project, which was a fake news detector using multinomial naive Bayes, like a statistics model. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I just basically told them, how I was passionate about this project because of the pandemic. A lot of misinformation took place in that time. And then and then I did the fake news detector and how I implemented in my parents' daily life and stuff like that.
Mm. Yeah, nice one. I'm sure like we are all having this kind of like experiences that help us to delve deeper and then to determine that is the really ultimate goal that we want to actually venture into. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like they are just being humble here because we know them like in real life, and like I think like everyone is just so interested in many fields. Like they also do music and sports,
Yeah.
like other stuff. So if you are looking to like explore what your passion really is, you don't really have to like limit yourself to one academic field, and just try exploring different things and finding out which one really suits you. All right, so let's talk a bit about the application process to US universities. So I think like we are more familiar with the Malaysian system where you have this UPU system and then you apply to different unis, right? So in the US, then they have this common app system or coalition application. So you can choose which one, but common app is usually more commonly used. And also there's the UC system if you are applying to public schools in California. So can you all tell a bit about like your whole application process? Like when did you start and how's the process for you? So Melvin?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, the application process started quite early, to be honest. Yeah, okay. I mean, like, okay, it was like an on and off thing. Like it wasn't like a consistent thing that I worked on. But I would say that I actually started like looking into the possibility of like studying in the US at the end of like Form 4, like during the holidays. So it's quite an interesting story lah. So like my friend and I we were actually at the library during the holidays because we wanted to like study for like physics. Yeah, and then actually from there, I don't know why it was like so random, but we ended up like looking into like studying in the US and all that because I shared to him a little bit about like my experience when I went for a competition in the US. So like I got to hear about like all these like different like universities, these different like top institutions, and like how all the participants there at the competition were like, oh, they already got like an offer, or like they were waiting to go there, or they were like still in the process of applying. Like that was like the very first exposure I had to like American universities. And I shared with him a little bit about like what I heard lah during like my competition. And from there we started looking into like, oh, like how should you like prepare, how should you like like go about preparing for like the SAT or like the SAT subject test. I think that was still a thing back then. It was still a thing before it was like cancelled in recently. And after that we started like writing like a rough like draft lah of like what we wanted to put in our personal statement. But after that, I think the momentum kind of like fell away because we had to prepare for the SPM. So like I think like I left like my US application or whatever I planned untouched for like almost like 1.5 year until I was in like Sem 3 in like KY. Then only like I started like like really spending a lot of time on like thinking and also brainstorming and also like getting everything together. Yeah.
Yeah, and fun fact, everyone, like right after SPM, like before even starting A levels, Melvin actually completed his SAT subject test and also IELTS.
Yeah.
So that's insane.
Right. So I'm very different from Melvin. I don't have an American dream since young. I only knew I will apply to US um when I went to KY. So in Sem 1 and Sem 2, I guess what I did was purely, like went to Shuzin's place at night, and then we chat about it, we dreamed about it, and then we watch lots of YouTube vlogs together, like study with me, or like a day in blah 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 school. Yeah, that's where like our love for US education begins to pull out, and then we are very certain that we want to go to US for education. So and then during Sem 2 we started to ask ourselves how to strategize our application, but we don't really like put it, like jot it down, like or write a draft and stuff like that. It was until Sem 3 that we realized that the deadline is coming very soon and we have to do something. So yeah, we do it together, and also with Henry and Melvin, not only
Yeah. So I guess like everyone who went through the process would agree that the most difficult part is actually writing the essays, especially because for Common App there's like this one main personal essay, and then for each school you're applying to, there's different school specific supplemental essays. And if you're using the UC system, then you probably write 4 personal insight essays. So yeah, basically just many essays. So yeah, how was the process in writing personal statements for everyone? Like how do you come out with the idea of like, okay, this is the story that I want to tell?
Yeah, I think writing is definitely hands down the hardest thing in applying to the US because there's like so many essays that you have to write. But I think again like what Shusin said, finding your story is important. And I guess like for some people the stories came like naturally, like like they just felt like, oh, like that's the story that I'm going to tell, that's the story that defines me. And I feel like personally I fell into like that category because I had like one story that really meant the most to me. But I also realized that actually many other people have a hard time finding their story, and I think it's perfectly fine to have difficulty in like finding a story, because we have so many, we are like all different from each other. We have so many different passions, different interests, and all that. So the question really boils down to what are we actually going to write in our application. So I think the best way for us to like like think of what to write in our application, right, is to definitely reflect on our past experiences. Like like you can like have a piece of paper where you like write down what are some of the activities that you did, what was some of the most like interesting things that you have ever seen in your life during like when you were doing extracurricular activities. What were some of like the challenges you faced, and actually like what did you learn from all those experiences. I think it's really important for you to have like a brainstorming sheet, like a piece of paper where you just like write down anything, any idea at all that you have, and like you just jot down all those like different points, different ideas, and from there only you start like narrowing down into like what you actually want to write and what do you think actually matters to you. So like that's one thing that I feel is really useful when you're brainstorming for ideas. And I think like the other way is like usually when we are starting to write our essay, right, we actually struggle a lot to come up with like the introduction. We're like, oh, how am I going to start this? How am I going to like come up with like the perfect introduction to like wow everyone, and then get the reader to like keep scrolling down through your essay. So I think like that's the mentality that we need to change. So like we don't need to worry about the beginning and the end straight away, but I think what we can do is that we can focus on like the content. So like when I mention the content, right, it doesn't mean that like even the sentences have to be like flowery and all that. It has to be like bombastic and all that. I think most importantly is that we focus on like drafting out the points of our essay first. Like what are we going to cover in our essay? Focus on the content, focus on the meat. And then I think another good strategy is that you can actually like do the telling first. Like you can just like state what is obvious first, what are the things that you're going to tell in your essay. And then after that, once you're done with like the whole like rough draft of your essay, then only you focus on how to show that story. Yeah.
Okay, really good advice from Melwin. Yeah, what about Khai Xin? How's the process for you?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Melvin said. Like for me, the most like challenging part is definitely to ask yourself what do you want to write for your common app essay, because it's a 650 words essay. That's the most important essays for you. So I'm pretty sure everyone has a lot of stories to tell, but what like you can only choose one. So what will the story be? So that's the very like the most difficult question that I faced during my application. So what I did was actually I spent quite like sometimes with myself, asking myself and do a lot of reflection. And I mean like reflection, as in like, what do you want to let people know? Or what do you want your whole application shows tell about you as a person. Yeah. And another way for you to decide like what to write for your stories will probably be talking to lots of people. It can be like your close friends or like your family members, but it can also be strangers, just like random strangers. And you ask yourself what do you want to share with them, and what topic uh you can share, and you can talk for a long hours that you are very very passionate to share with them. Yeah, so that's how I decide what to write. And then again, after you decide, you have to write it down and you have to let people proofread it, because as what Melvin said, it's kind of impossible for us to have the very first draft to be perfect. So we definitely have to keep editing and keep letting people to proofread, because sometimes like you feel like you want to tell something from the essay, but it doesn't really show. So you need to let people read and ask people, so what can you understand from my essay? And what can you tell? So that's the way I did for my essays. Yeah, but definitely you have to start early so that you have ample of time to do all these things.
All right, thanks for sharing. And I'm so glad that we all just survived the whole process. And yeah, now you all are going off to the US soon. So do you all face any particular challenges or difficulties throughout the process where you feel like, oh, maybe I'm just not gonna apply anymore. I'm done with this. Are there any moments like this?
Yeah, I think for me, and I think it's definitely true for like all of us, is definitely the time limit. So like we had like quite a limited time to like apply to like quite a few institutions, and also at the same time we had to juggle our academics along with our extracurricular commitments during the process. So like yeah, I remember like back in Sem 3, it was such a tough time, it was like a daily struggle against time, like at the same time you need to make sure that like your ECAs, like you manage it well, because I think like certainly like quite it's quite a common trend for people to like just like dump their current commitments during like application season, and like just fully work on their academics and also their um application. But I've still felt that like it was really important to like be involved in extracurriculars at that time, like because like I remember like the juniors just came in, and then like they were like just like they were unsure of like which clubs to join, and then they were like exploring, and then like we were just there to like help them and get them started on like their journey, right? So I think that that's something that we should keep up with. But also at the same time, academics, I remember like, because the US, they also look at like our semester exams and all that. So it was a really big struggle for us to like keep up with academics too during that time. And I would say that there were like certain like challenges. Like for example, actually at first I wanted to apply to Princeton, I think, and then they had the writing requirement where you had to submit an essay, like a written piece of work from your class. And I remember that that time my IELTS teacher, he already like went back to Brazil. So I couldn't like, I mean, obviously I could have found other methods, but I felt that it was quite a bit of like a limitation. So I just didn't want to like continue with my application for Princeton. And yeah, I think that that is some of the challenges and difficulties that I faced. Yeah.
What about Khai Xin?
Six.
Right. For me, I think the most challenging part will be definitely try to avoid from burning out, because it's a long journey. It's not only until Sem 3, it's also Sem 4 where you have to get yourself prepared for A level examination and also the interview. And then after Sem 4, you'll be panicked for like, your visa application, and then like everything, literally everything, and then you'll proceed with, oh, what class should I take during my freshman, and then you have to plan for your sophomore, junior, senior year. So it's definitely a long journey. So definitely I guess the most important thing you need to do is to prevent yourself from burning out and keep your momentum going up, because you can't like start with a peak and then decreases along that time. And I guess what you can do is definitely, allow yourself to rest in between, and also um just wait, I can't remember. There's a specific word that says like you literally need to stop writing your essays and then like go out, explore, and wait, is it a writing block? Something like that. Yeah. Have you all heard of it?
Okay.
Now we've heard of it.
Yeah, now we
Yeah.
heard it.
Yeah, something like that. So definitely yeah, allow yourself to rest and know your limit lah. Don't always like push yourself, and then eventually you experience burnt out, and that's the worst thing, right? You will face, because everything afterwards will be affected. Yeah.
Yeah. So just a reminder to everyone going through the process as well. Like take care of your physical and mental health, because we know it's a tough journey. Even after you submit your application, it's still a struggle to wait for the decisions to come in. So
Mm.
yeah, do like be resilient and stay tough throughout the process. And I guess another difficulty that people usually face is finding scholarships or financial aid to study overseas, because we know that it's very expensive for international students to go there. So, how do y'all get your scholarships or financial aid? Can you explain a bit?
Okay. Yeah, I think for like scholarship, right? Because for me, like after SPM, I applied for like a few scholarships. I think I applied for like Khazanah, Petronas, and also Shell. And then like I got into like Khazanah. So like basically the scholarship that Khazanah is offering is that they are going to send you to like KYUM, like College Liaison UEM, to do A levels for like 2 years, and then after that, if like you meet all the grade requirements and then you got into like the universities under their approved list, they will also sponsor you to study abroad in their list of institutions. And I think from there after that you'll be asked to like come back and then serve your bond. So for me, I actually got my scholarship through Kazana. But I think there's also like if you're particularly interested in studying in the US, there are also like quite a few institutions that offer financial aid. So yeah, I mean I'm not really well versed in that, but there's definitely options for you to apply to the US and also get the financial aid from the university itself.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, my turn. Right. I guess for Malaysian, the most straightforward path will probably be after SPM, you apply for a two-tier scholarship, meaning they will sponsor your pre-U education and also your degree. So, and I guess that's also where you will have most opportunities because normally like sponsorship like Shell, Petronas, Khazanah Bank, and a lot more, they only offer after SPM. So, but it doesn't mean that after A level you don't have any scholarship to study abroad. It has, but it's definitely lesser. I guess the one that I know is Scope Foundation. They do offer and also YTL, but it's very limited and also they are need based, meaning you have to your household salary need to be below a certain amount of figure. Yeah. So other option will probably be financial aid, as what Melwin said. It's more like direct and also it's from the university. But you have to be mindful that if it's a financial aid, it can be need blind or need aware. Yeah, that's also like another problem or another concern you might have. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to explain, need blind means like when you apply to that uni, the admissions officer won't know that you are actually asking for financial aid, so it won't affect your decision. But need aware means they are aware that you are looking for financial aid, and they might take this into consideration when like thinking whether or not to offer you a place at their university, because they have to be aware of how much financial aid they are giving out each year. Do they have enough money? Yeah. So do your research well if you're looking into that. All right. So just now I think it was a bit like sad and negative where we talk about like some of the struggles we went through. So let's talk a bit about like some of the fun and interesting stuff that you're actually experienced throughout the application process.
Good question. I'm not sure if what I'm gonna say is like positive. In one of my interviews with an interviewer. So yeah, my interviewer for that particular university, he wasn't Malaysian. He was from another country, but he's definitely had a lot of experience traveling around the world and like staying in like like the Big Apple in New York City and all that. And then when we were like going through the interview process, like we talked a little bit about like the culture in Malaysia and also like the US. And I think one of the more interesting things that he mentioned that I was really shocked was that he said that Malaysia, or actually like KL in particular, like Kuala Lumpur, actually had no culture. That was the most shocking thing that I ever heard from him. He was like, oh, that was like no culture is kind of like monotonous, the pace is slow, it's more suitable for retired people. And then he was like, oh, like KL is nothing compared to New York City. And then I was like, bro, what? Yeah, yeah. So that was definitely one of the interesting things that I faced in the university applications process. Yeah.
I guess for me, the most interesting things throughout the whole application journey will be probably reading like my friends' essays, get to know them, like
Oh.
from another side. Like you wouldn't know them like through, you wouldn't know like the stories behind them until you read their essays. It's a very reflective essays, and it really tells like other sides of your friend. Yeah. And that's also where our friendships grow deeper, and also we form a very strong support system. Yeah. That's the most interesting experience I have, and the most grateful experience I have. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's so sweet.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just recall back like we are just like very randomly just like text each other and then say, hey, well, we can just have like a review session, and then I would just like review the whole day. And then I think that is a time that our friendship actually flourished. And then like until right now we are still like talking to each other and recalling back to the memory, right? Yeah. So I guess like just now we talk about like his fun experience about interview. So maybe we can talk about like your interview experiences with US universities, because for information, interview is one of the component, I would say like one of the important elements throughout your whole application process, especially for US universities application. So maybe Melvin, you can share a little bit about your interview process first.
Yeah, sure. So I think just now I mentioned one of my interviews, and then I can share about like the other few interviews that I had the chance to like join. So I think I'll start with like my Stanford interview. I think it was really good in a way. I know that other people like maybe like Khai Xin or Shu Xin had a bit more negative experience with the interview. But yeah, for me, the Stanford interview was like really good. The interviewer, he was a guy from Penang also. He was working as a consultant, but he actually started his major at Stanford in like electrical engineering. And then he asked me a lot about like what I did with my like extracurricular interests, like what I did with my like project. And then he was like, oh, like how did you start the project? And I think at some point it started becoming a little bit like technical. Like he was like asking me like, oh, like, how would you like commercialize this product, or like how do you think this product can be implemented for like like underprivileged communities and all that. And after that, he just like talked to me about a few like fun stuff that he did at Stanford. So he was like sharing like, oh, he had like a vegetarian. He was a vegetarian, and then he had like vegetarian meals there. He cooked like curry for his like friends to eat, and he even went to like Germany for like a study abroad program in engineering. So like yeah, that was some of the fun things. And I think for my other interviews like the MIT interview. I think the MIT interview was also really interesting. It was really fun too, because the interviewer that interviewed me, he was somehow from like the same high school as me. So like yeah, we sort of like instantly clicked, and then like we talked a lot about what I think are the problems faced in like STEM education, particularly for like my experiences in the high school, and like what I felt could have been improved. And he also asked me a lot of like quite like technical questions. It's not too deep, but it's actually asking about like how much I understand about like the research that I did back in high school, and how am I going to like take it a step further? Am I going to like patent it? Am I going to commercialize it? And like yeah, it was a really chill like session. And then he also gave me some advice. He was like, "Oh, it doesn't matter if you get." I think this was the most important takeaway that I got from his interview, that he gave advice to me. He was like, it doesn't matter which university you get into. He was like, oh, you may not get MIT, you may get MIT, but at the end of the day, getting into like these universities and going to them, each of them has their own like pros and cons. Each of them has their own drawbacks. But it's really up to us to make the most of the environment that we are in, to like bring ourselves to a higher level. So like that was the mentality that I felt was really good lah, from what he gave me. Yeah.
Nice. Right. I guess my interviews, I had two interviews with Stanford and Princeton. So my interviews are quite common lah. So nothing very interesting. But um my Princeton interview can like, I would say it was quite technical, because I didn't get to introduce myself, and the very first question she asked me was like, what do you want to study in Princeton? And then follow up with also what book have you read? What projects have you done? And also like yeah, what classes do you plan to take in Princeton and stuff like that. And I guess she was also quite busy because I can see she was in a office and then she was looking around every time, checking if anyone needs to talk to her. So it was quite rushing for her. So we didn't really get to like, talk a lot. And at the same time, she did master in Princeton, so she didn't really know like how the degrees is like in Princeton. So when I asked her like some questions, she couldn't really answer me because she don't have the experience. Yeah, but I guess Shuzin will have more interesting story to share for her Stanford interview.
Okay, so for my Stanford interview, okay, the thing is like I think the whole interview process starts from like your interviewer contacting you, maybe through email or maybe WhatsApp also. And then I got this email, but then like the interviewer wrote someone else's name instead of mine. And then like I guess maybe 10 minutes later they replied to that email with my name, and then they didn't say like it's a correction or anything. They just assume like nothing happened. And then like during the interview itself, it was online, and then they entered like few minutes late, but I felt like okay, maybe it's okay, people are busy. But then like they came in and the first thing they told me is like this interview will only last for 15 minutes, and I was shocked like okay, how am I gonna like present myself and convey the things I want to in 15 minutes, because according to the official website, typically an interview will last for 30 to 45 minutes. But yeah, I kind of like I couldn't argue as well. I just went with the flow, and the questions were really surface level. Like after I answered, there was no follow-up questions at all. So yeah, and also like I asked a few other friends who had the same interviewer as me, and they all faced the same situation, like only 15 minutes, and it was quite a rush and no deep conversations at all. So I think like we can see that there are many different interviewing styles here. Like I think Melvin met some really chill ones who would talk to you about the culture in New York City, in KL, and Khai Xin met some very serious ones asking about academic questions. Yeah, and then for mine, yeah, it's quite an interesting experience as well. So really just don't be shocked when you face situations like this, and just go with the flow and try your best to present yourself. Yeah. All right. So I think we've covered the entire application process, from starting your Common App to writing essays, getting friends to review your essays, and at the end, getting an interview. So looking back at the whole process, is there anything that you would do differently if you could turn back time?
Yeah, I think for me, I would say is definitely start earlier. Okay, I don't mean starting in Form 3 or anything like that. But yeah, but what I mean by starting earlier is that maybe once you get started, it should be more of like a consistent effort, like I would have like like at least spend like maybe like 2 hours a week from like like the beginning of the year for application season to like brainstorm ideas and all that. I think that would have definitely helped a lot in like producing like the best application that you can to submit to the universities. And I would say that one thing that oh wait, okay, this is not already one thing, this is like two things, but I'll just mention it. Yeah, so I think for me, I wouldn't have, if I could have done things differently, I wouldn't have changed my application strategy for regular decision. So like for the regular decision, because I got into like Stanford for like early action, and for my regular decision, I decided to like suddenly apply to like many other universities. So at first my list of universities were like quite few. It was around five or six, yeah, five or six, I think. And once I got into like Stanford, I felt that, like maybe I could be a bit more ambitious and like, like just try applying to like every university in the list offered by like my sponsorship body. And I actually like did that, but I think that sort of like spreaded me out a little bit too thin, and it didn't really like work. But I mean, I still got into like Colombia for like regular decision, so it kind of worked. But for the others, it didn't really work because I think I spread myself too thin. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, also two things. One is to start early. Yeah. I feel like in December it was quite rushed for me to write all the supplements in about 2 weeks time. So I don't really have a lot of time to, analyze, strategize, and do reflection on like the essays, the supplements that I've written. Yeah. And the second thing is it's definitely fine and good for you to get people proofread and also like get some help to edit if let's say you are not comfortable with, your language and stuff. But always take a grain of salt from like people's comment, because sometimes when you take everyone's feedback and then you edit, the whole essays will turn into a different essays, and that's where you realize that the whole essays does not show you as a person. It's not coming from you, and you realize that you need to rewrite the whole essay. Yeah, so definitely always like think twice before you edit your essays, especially after you receive feedback from others.
Yeah, I definitely agree that because like it's really important also that we start early because we can do more reflection on ourselves. It's like you really think of like what you want to include or what you want to show to your admission officers that really matters to you so they can know you as a person, and then yeah, it will be more valuable as well. Yeah, so like throughout this whole application process, like is there anything that you have learned or like you feel you are most grateful about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, I think like the biggest thing that I learned throughout this whole application process is to, like just be yourself, just be your most authentic self, and don't like overdo things. I think okay, I'm not an admissions expert, but I think I felt that after looking back at my Harvard application, I felt that it wasn't really representative of like my personality. I felt like I was like trying to portray like the best version of like myself, but not the most authentic version of myself. Like I tried to write about like everything that I've like done previously. I think I've never mentioned to you all before that I like did poetry or like something in high school before, right? So yeah. So
Wow.
like yeah. Yeah, so I think that was like really that didn't really show like my direction in life, because I think for like my Stanford application I really communicated like two things clearly. Like I was really interested in STEM, like healthcare, and also like solving the spread of infectious diseases around like the world, and also education inequality. So like those were the two things that I really focused on in my Stanford application. But I think generally for my Harvard application, it was just like all over the place. Like it was like everything, but it wasn't anything. Yeah.
Right. For me, I'm most grateful of, yeah, the whole experience lah. Like I wouldn't have the chance of, turning all my experience into beautiful pieces of essays. Like no one would do it unless you have to do it, right? So I'm very grateful that this whole application kind of forced me to do this, because it really like allows you to do a lot of reflection, and throughout the whole process you will learn yourself better, and you will understand what you want in the future better.
Hmm. Yeah. But I guess like that's always a silver lining, because like what Melvin said, maybe he didn't get to convey his true self through application to one of the schools, but yeah, he still got like many other amazing schools. And I think like this is some experience that we'll only learn when we go through it. And also like what Khai Xin said, you had the experience to turn your experiences. What am I saying? Okay. like like what Khai Xin said, you had the chance to turn your experiences into written form and tell people who you are through 650 words, right? So I think we are all grateful for this opportunity at the end of the day, even though it was tiring and there were moments that we wanted to give up. All right. So, what are your future plans? Like maybe when you're studying there or after you have graduated from US universities, and do you have any advice to others who wish to pursue the same path as you?
Okay, yeah. For me, my future plans would be when I'm in the US, I'm probably gonna like travel a lot because I think obviously that's gonna be like the only chance or like the very few chances that I would have to like like go around the world and like see what the world has to offer. So I'm definitely going to be planning my winter and summer breaks wisely so that I get to spend time like like with my friends and all, and then I get to like focus on internships too. But I think at the same time I'm also going to focus on my academics. Yeah, and upon like returning to Malaysia, I think I'm definitely going to come back to Malaysia to serve my bond, obviously. And at the same time, I'm also going to think of like opportunities for applying to like postgraduate scholarships. But that's all in like the future lah. So like, yeah, live in the moment for me. And I think the advice that I would have for others is that just being your most authentic self is already enough, and do what you love to do. Focus on your passions. I think I would rather do something that I like that is not as rewarding compared to something that is very, very rewarding, but is something that I absolutely hate. I think it's just going to bring a toll to our mental health in the long run if you do something that you don't like, even though if the payout is like very big. So yeah, being passionate and also being authentic will bring you far in life.
Yeah, I agree. Right. So for me, um, while I'm in the US, oh, about the same as Melvin, like I plan to travel a lot because I truly believe that by traveling, you will get to see the world, and that's when you widen your horizon. Like you will see how people do things in a different way. And I guess that's very important. And another plan will be probably doing internship because again, I would love to explore different working culture, be it in the US or UK or any other countries. Probably study abroad if I have the opportunity. I guess it's very hard for me to tell you what I will be doing in the coming years because um I would say I'm always open for challenges and also opportunities. So I want myself to be flexible, but at the same time I have a rough plan. Like I need to graduate by 2027, and upon graduation I have to return to Malaysia and serve my bond with Shell Malaysia. That's a plan that I have, but other than that, I'm open for any opportunities. And for the students, I guess I totally agree with what Melvin said. You have to be passionate. You have to have a reason. Like when people ask you why you ask, you need to be able to answer the question, right? And it has to come from the bottom of your heart. And I guess that's the only way the admission officer can tell because like what we all know, like the admission rate is incredibly low. So among all the, competition pool, what makes you stand out? You have to know why, right? And it's kind of impossible for you to, get admitted without, having the passion, without wanting to go to US badly. Yeah, right. That's all from me.
Thanks for the wise words from both Melvin and Khai Xin. So yeah, really, no matter whether or not you end up in the US or even whether or not you end up in a university that you have always dreamt for, like most importantly is you make use of the resources wherever you are and fulfill your full potential there. All right, so that's it for this episode. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye
Bye.
Bye
bye.
bye.
All the best to everyone here in the US.
Yeah.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.